Let's talk about the world of electric estate cars. It's not a very big world because there's only one of them. It's the MG5 EV. Because unless you count the Porsche Taycan as an estate car, which it isn't really, this is it. In a world of SUVs and crossovers, nobody's really giving us a fully electric estate car apart from MG. And the last car sold magnificently well, very quietly did the job. So I'm going to feature in this video a walk round and a drive review of this, the brand new MG5 EV estate. I'm Jonny Smith, welcome to the Late Break Show. This is a massive old car. Tally-ho. Okay, so what is the MG5 EV? Well, first of all, what I should say to you is this is a heavily tech and facelifted version of the outgoing car. And if I click my fingers now, I will show you what the old car looked like. Here you go, original MG5 EV. Fake front grille, bit like the old Tesla S. Pretty much the same swage line, same waistline, slight kick up over the door, yeah, slight kick up over the door. Chrome trim goes into lights, chrome trim doesn't go into lights. Diffuser thing, not a diffuser thing. Badge, identical, the end. So it has a 61.1 kilowatt hour battery pack somewhere down there. It's a front wheel drive car. It's got 154 horsepower, 260 Newton meters of torque. But what it does have is an enormous amount of practicality back there, which we'll come on to in a minute. By the way, if you haven't seen my review of the MG4 EV, the all-new ground-up EV which came out recently, I will put a link above my head now because it went down very well. There's a lot of people who have ordered that and are very, very excited. I was excited by that car. It was brilliant, frankly. The previous version of this car, the previous MG5 that stopped being sold in about April, May this year because they ran out of supply, if you want to know more about that car, which seems to be a bit of a silent hero, I would recommend a husband and wife EV YouTube duo called James and Kate. They have done hundreds of thousands of miles in one. Have a look at their YouTube channel. One thing to bear in mind is trying to work out what its probably closest competitor is. And I reckon it's probably the Kia e-Niro. In terms of performance as well, actually. And if you haven't seen my review of the latest Kia e-Niro, I'll put a link on the top of the screen now. And the reason why I say that is because if you think about the range, 250 miles, but also it's the performance. This thing's quite nippy. 0 to 62 in 7.7 seconds, which is actually quite punchy. Obviously not Tesla territory, but it's right amongst the contenders. And it's really good response. And I've got it in eco mode, I've just realized. So that's what, 260 Newton meters of torque, 115 kilowatt motor. So that battery pack is about the same size as the Volkswagen ID3, the middle battery range ID3, so 58 kilowatt hour is the Volkswagen. So I got the mode settings, I've got it in eco, and I've got my KERS, kinetic energy recovery system, regen braking. I've got it on maximum actually because I tend to drive it with quite aggressive regen, but when I come off the throttle on 3, it's still mild. Regen is mild even on number 3 setting. So don't expect harsh braking when you come off the throttle, which might suit some. Other thing is I went to get in the car and put the heated seat on because it is autumnal and cold. And I couldn't find it. It's not a physical button. And I realized I had to go into the AC button, which is for climate control, not just air conditioning, which is a little bit misleading. And there it is. There's a button in there, but it's either on or off. there's no stages of it. So there's lots of stages of other stuff, but not heated seats. And you can't get heated seats in the back. But it's okay, because it's built to a price. Yeah, I've gone into MG's Pilot, which is their safety system packages. You've got lane assist, which you can turn off with just a button here. Traffic jam assistance system, speed control mode, front collision assist, blah, blah, blah. There's a few. But also right at the bottom, battery heating during driving. So you can set that up to, I'm guessing, to preheat when you go to rapid charge, which is really cool, because you often don't get that on cars unless they're quite high end. MG's got it. It's got it right there, if you want it. Let's talk boot space. Crucial element of the MG5. I wonder where I put my jacket. It's getting a bit autumnal out here. So, the boot is 578 litres on the MG5, and here's the thing, what do you compare it to? Because all its competitors aren't estate cars really, are they? You know, you've got the Kia e-Niro, you've got the Hyundai Kona, you've got the Leaf, which has a gigantic boot, the Zoe, all those kinds of cars, ID3, smaller boot. So we've got all our kit from the shoot in here. So this demonstrates you kind of what you're dealing with. And I've met a lot of MG5 owners of the outgoing car who have bought it purely on two things. It's an estate car and it's practical, being electric, and two, 7-year warranty, because MG has a 7-year warranty. I always carry a second coat on shoots, just so you know, I'm very practical. Just like an MG5. So, in the bag here, we got a traditional roller blind style Venetian thing here. Under there is a little bit of space to store, I guess, what would have been a spare wheel-ish, but not a great deal. Not a flat floor entry, which I think is a shame. I like estate cars with a where you can slide in appliances and stuff like that. And then when you put the seats down, it looks like this. So there, 1,367 litres of boot space with the seats down. Okay, that's loaded to the roof, the same as the boot space on its own. Now, when you put the back seats down, just like the previous car, they don't fold flat, which is a little bit annoying, but again, it is the only electric estate, so it does a half decent job of being an estate car. The other thing about the boot is dog owners. Dog owners, there's a lot of you out there and you buy cars for your dog. This is good for dogs, medium-sized dogs, perhaps even big dogs. You buy a lot of SUVs, and most of those SUVs aren't actually that good at being dog carriers. So consider this. You know who you are. You're the sort of person that carries one of these around in your back pocket. I don't even have a dog, so I don't know why I've got this in my pocket. I'm doing 50 miles an hour. Roads are fairly smooth. The cabin is quiet. Certainly not sensed any annoying whistling or anything from those roof bars. But the other thing I've realised is this is a softer car and probably a little bit less sophisticated in the suspension department, in the chassis department, than the MG4. But I suspect this is an older car. Because remember, this car was launched in what, 2019? Might have been launched in 2018. The underpinnings of this, the main guts of the 5. I thought the higher driving position would irritate me, but so far I'm finding it to be just fine. Driver's seat has got electric controls. Passenger seat doesn't. But I don't really care about electric seat controls because you can do it quicker with a lever and a here and a knob there, so I don't really mind. On the dash binnacle, when you're driving along, you've got power, a graphic sweep on the right, and when you come off the power, it gives you a minus percentage, so it's telling you what you're creaming back to put into the batteries. And on the left, you've got miles per hour. Again, a sort of like fish scale graphic, which is tasteful. And in the middle, you can just have your little car graphic on the road. And this does have bicycle detection system as well, actually. So yeah, this higher center console definitely makes it way more modern looking than the outgoing MG5, which is a good thing, because the original MG5 had a front grille and it looked just like a piston estate car, a budget estate car. This feels a little bit more special. Once we get out this village, enjoy that, I'll use sport mode. Sport mode does like all these things using software and stuff. The drive-by-wire throttle tightens right up. There's no adjustable suspension or anything on a car of this kind of cost price level. Remember, we are dealing with a car that's just over 30,000 quid. And there is only one battery size. And the more I think about it, the more that 2.5 grand for the trophy model, this one, which has the, you know, the bigger alloy wheels and stuff, the privacy glass, I just wouldn't bother. The 360 camera is okay, but it's quite grainy clarity, and it's not a difficult car to see the back of. Being an estate, you know where the back of the car is because you see the back window. So I'd be inclined to not bother. Right, there we go. Let's give it a little punch. So you can hear it. It sounds like a jet engine spooling up, giving you that percentage of power that you're using. So when I really towed it down, I was using 97% of the power. And this is at 70 miles an hour. Bit of wind noise around the A-pillars here, but really I'm really not that bothered. The only thing I'm bothered about is this lady that was tailgating me in a Kia. And she knows she's tailgating me because I think she can see I'm talking about her. Wow, she had a face like something from Jim Henson's Dark Crystal. No offence. So this, the front end of the MG5, is the main place that they've revised it. Remember, this is a sort of a heavy facelift and a major tech lift with the same battery and motor and suspension and chassis as the last car. But this, on the previous car, was very different. This now comes with LED headlights. They're much slimmer. There's no grille that there was before, so it looks a little bit more EV-like and looks a little bit more like the MG4. The badge is a lot smaller, more subtle than the MG4 badge, actually. Remember, this is not the last word in style. This is really aimed at practicality, which is why so many people bought the outgoing car, the MG5, who were in fleet market and business market. A lot of taxi drivers bought them. They seem to just get on and do the job really well. Here, the nose. It is where you fill it up with electricity. Of course, it can CCS charge. There's a lovely little MG logo here, which gives you the state of charge, the lights here, which I quite like. So as I said, it's a 61.1 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it can charge up to 87 kilowatts, and it will do 35 minutes, 10 to 80%, or just over 9 hours. And yet, on a good day, 250 mile WLTP range. And a lot of the previous cars' long-term ranges have said it'll do over 200 in the real world frequently, even with wipers on in the dark. Pretty good. Gonna put these bungs back in. I don't like bungs. It's a minor gripe, but the bungs just swing around, they get caught. I just want a little doors. Or this, you know. So that's in there. While I'm at the front end as well, there's a little camera there and there's a camera at the back, because there's two specs of MG5. Nice and simple, really, the trim levels. There's SE and then there's Trophy. Trophy being top spec, and the 360 camera is one of the few things you get extra on the Trophy. This is a Trophy model that I'm testing today. Yeah, there's a smattering of chrome here, and then there's these sort of gills which look a little bit like the end of a leisure swimming pool where there's a wave machine, if you've ever gone underwater and looked through, which I think is sinister in a pool, not in this. Or one of those whales where they're just going through sifting krill through their sort of like teeth, a bit like that. But more importantly, that there, I think that's the radar for active cruise control, and also have autonomous emergency braking. Oh, so these little side areas here, pieces of design, I don't think there's any lights in them or anything, but they're mimicked on the design at the back. You're wondering what's under the bonnet. Let's have a look. Okay, now, on the previous car, of which this is almost identical underneath, a lot of owners said there's an enormous amount of room under here that is cruelly not used. There is no frunk/fruit, which seems a bit of a shame. Now, I'm not going to rip all of this cladding off, or maybe I am. Because I want to see, can I see? No, I need a screwdriver and I didn't bring one. But yeah, there's an enormous amount of space under there. We'll see if we can get a voyeur camera in. But in that bit, the central portion, there's enough room for like a little well to store a case or something like that, which is a shame. You could put something in there. Damn you, MG. MG have had nearly an 82% market share growth in the UK. So in the last 18 months, well, since COVID, their market share has just risen and risen and risen. And they have really managed to sell an enormous amount of cars to people. And actually, as of this month, today I'm driving this, the 1st of November actually, they've said that their supply issues are loosening quickly and they're managing to get more and more cars shipped over from China. Now, yes, there's people, and I read the comments of the previous MG4 that I reviewed, people saying they would not buy a car made in China or a Chinese company car. What I would say to that is consider how many things are made in China or owned by Chinese companies nowadays. The iPhone in your pocket is not made in California, and it hasn't ever, pretty much. Go and buy a Volvo. It's owned by a Chinese company. It's just the way the world is. It's driven by people wanting better stuff for less money. It's just a product of the modern world, really. I'm on a dual carriageway and I wouldn't normally do this, but there is nothing behind me whatsoever. So I'm going to put it into sport mode and I'm going to do a 0 to 62. 3, 2, 1. Now, okay, so obviously it's not going to tear my arse or anything like that. This is not a Tesla. But it feels good. It feels especially punchy, kind of like 5 miles an hour to 40, which I've gotten quite used to with a lot of cars now. But again, it's about having a choice, it's about having the adjustability of the curves, the drive modes. I realised I've got loads of headroom up here, and the car does sit high, which is, I think there's got a lot of suspension travel here, which is why you can see that massive gap between the arch top and the top of the tyre. It's not meant to look kind of sporty at all. It's just sensible. Get a roof box on there, get an aerodynamic roof box on there, get a tow bar on there and tow a teardrop caravan. Profile of the MG5, I'm pretty sure the body is unchanged pretty much. Certainly this swage line, this little kick up here is as was. The top spec cars like the Trophy now come on 17-inch alloys. They're diamond cut alloys, fairly generic now, not really my bag. Massive amount of ground clearance it seems. And this bad boy is running on Michelins, I noticed. Yeah, Michelin 215 5017s. But this is all about practicality, the MG5. It's not about looking cool. And one of the things they've added from the previous car are these roof bars. You can carry 75 kilos on the roof and you can tow up to half a ton. The MG5 EV, if you're wondering size-wise, it's about 4.6 meters long, so it's actually not a very big car. It's a very medium-sized car, ideal for the UK and a lot of European roads. And that's kind of the point of it, really. It fits in, it blends in, it gets on and does the job. Inside the new MG5 is all new. So this is where the tech lift and an all new cabin comes into play. So it does look truly modern. I have to say, stuff like this brushed aluminium effect material looks convincing, even close up. Looks damn good quality, and this sort of stitched material dash in the middle and the side bolsters. High center console with this rotary dial, that's the main difference, and then it's got the infotainment here and also the digital binnacle here, pretty much lifted from the MG4 model. Underneath you've got physical buttons like home button, volume, heated front and rear screens, the usual kind of quick reference climate control, which I like. The rotary knob feels really good actually. Again, it feels better quality than I was expecting. And then you've got two little tabs here. The mode button here goes from sport, comfort, eco. Yeah, I think that's it, 3. Yeah, there we go. Comfort and eco. Electric handbrake, like they all have. 2 cup holder storage, a fairly good size binnacle, and the armrest is high and useful, which I like. And talking of high, previous observation of this car, the previous version, is you sit quite high. You can't put the seat down really low, which I tend to like, but that can be a positive for a lot of people who tend to buy crossovers and SUVs because they like to sit high. The ground clearance of this car is high. The seating position is high. Hey, it's basically an SUV, right? But you have got adjustability in the column here. Steering wheel, if it isn't leather, it blimmin' feels like leather with perforations here. And I remember from the MG4, this is really easy to navigate actually. And it's compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It's dead easy to get into. I've just noticed actually, this infotainment binnacle here is all angled ever so slightly towards me, the driver. Let's get in the back. The back. This is the bit that excites me a bit more than the front on the MG5 EV. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a true flat floor car. So the person in the middle, the 5th person, has half decent legroom, which I like. The backs of the seats are kind of sculpted in. I'm sitting almost behind myself and I've got a fair amount of legroom. Now the floor is higher like most EVs because the batteries live down there, which means my feet, oh, and I've got long legs, are propped off the bolster of the seat a little bit, which is not ideal, but for most younger people and smaller people, it's fine. Armrest, I think this is that leather effect they were talking about, leather look. I prefer the actual upholstery. I'd rather have it all like that, frankly. One thing I must mention, which is why I got my phone out my pocket, is because one major update for this car is they now have an app called the MG iSmart, and what that does is it helps you to do things like finding the nearest charging stations, pre-starting and preheating your climate and your cooling, hands-free voice control, find your car when it's parked, if you're one of these people that actually forgets where you park your car, schedule your charging, and it tells you about all the over-air updates. Really useful. The app is supposed to be half decent. I know a lot of car manufacturers don't get it right. Let's see what MG do. Oh, this also has a Wi-Fi hotspot, as standard, I believe. I don't know whether it's me growing up with estate cars, but I just love them. I think they work so well in a number of scenarios, and I just feel like they've been left out in the cold for no reason since this whole SUV phase seems to have crept up and dominated everybody. That's almost another subject. The main subject here is, what about this one, this MG5? I think this car is a really decent, practical thing. It's probably a car for people that aren't into cars and they just want to do longer journeys, electric only, in a shape of a car where they can fit lots of stuff in. And it's not about projecting a style from the outside in. However, it's damn good value. And it's not quite as sharp as the MG4, but then the MG4 is a smaller car. What I hope, more than anything with this thing, with 7-year warranty and all this kit, is that it encourages other manufacturers to realise that you should build more estate cars. There should be more electric estates coming on the market. Look at the sales of this, the outgoing car. If it's anything to go by, the world wants them, or at least we do here in Britain. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Late Break Show. If you haven't already subscribed, why not subscribe? I do an awful lot of electric car reviews, and I'll put a link to that playlist somewhere on this screen right this minute. Maybe you want to support this show via Patreon. You'll get early blogs from me and early access to videos like this as well. Maybe you want to buy some merchandise. We do a lot of it. There's a link to the shop in the description below. Thank you.